You've been told that reality is measurable, that what can be observed is all that can exist. But the universe never agreed to your methods. As you fall asleep tonight, let me peel back the equations, layer by layer, until nothing makes sense. Any more the illusion of time you think you're moving through time, that every second falling from the ticking clock pulls you forward, dragging your past behind you like a trail of breadcrumbs leading back to your first breath. But physics doesn't care about your breadcrumbs. It doesn't even care about your breath, because in the language of relativity, time doesn't move forward. It doesn't move at all. In 1905, Einstein cracked the facade. His theory of special relativity didn't just suggest a speed limit for the universe. It shattered your intuition. Time dilates. It slows down the faster you move, bending and warping in direct contradiction to every clock you've ever trusted. Twin astronauts, separated by velocity, will age differently. Not metaphorically, literally. The faster one returns younger. Time has betrayed you, but that's only the beginning. General relativity took it further, revealing that gravity isn't a force at all. It's geometry. Mass bends space-time, and time itself moves slower the closer you get to massive bodies. Your feet are older than your head. Atomic clocks, placed just a few centimeters higher, tick faster. Time is not uniform. It's personal. Curved, distorted, a liar hiding behind your watch face. And yet you still plan your day, like it's linear. Even more disturbing is what this means about the past and future. In relativity, all moments exist equally. There is no privileged now. Your childhood, your deathbed, they all exist somewhere in the fabric of space-time, spread out like pages in a book you're not allowed to flip through. You're not traveling through time. You're smeared across it. But that's not what you feel, is it? You feel the arrow, forward, relentless, irreversible. And so you cling to entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. Energy disperses, systems become disordered, and time's arrow points from order to chaos. It gives you comfort, a direction. But even this arrow is not fundamental. It depends entirely on initial conditions, on assumptions. You feel the arrow of time, not because time moves, but because your brain does. In the 1920s, Arthur Eddington said the direction of time is a feature of consciousness. Your neurons encode memory in one direction. You experience cause before effect, so you call that direction forward. But if your brain fired in reverse, if memories loaded backwards, you would never know. Why does time seem to move only in one direction when the laws of physics work just as well in reverse? If you filmed billiard balls colliding, you wouldn't know which way the film was playing. But if you watched someone light a cigarette, you'd know. Smoke does not unburn. Why? Why is entropy increasing? The truth is, we don't know. Maybe it was the Big Bang. Maybe it's boundary conditions. Maybe the universe began in a state of extraordinarily low entropy, an ordered explosion that has been unraveling ever since. But that only shifts the question. Why did it begin that way? There are deeper violations waiting. The block universe theory suggests that time is an illusion entirely, that the past, present, and future all coexist simultaneously, and that your experience of now is just a point of perception sliding along a four-dimensional structure. Imagine a loaf of bread. Each slice is a moment. Your consciousness is a knife cutting through it. But the whole loaf already exists. So if your birth, your regrets, your pain, and your death all already exist, what exactly are you waiting for? Why are you trying to sleep? In quantum mechanics, things get worse. The equations that describe subatomic particles are perfectly symmetrical in time. The Schrödinger equation doesn't care about past or future. The only place time emerges is in your active observation. Until then, all is probability, Nothing is real until it collapses under the weight of your gaze. But how does your mind collapse a universe? If a particle can be in multiple places at once, and time doesn't pick a side, then what are you anchoring to? You say now, but now is a choice, a reference frame, a delusion. Your idea of cause and effect is not written into the fabric of reality. It's written in your cortex, between the folds of gray matter soaked in subjective time. The physicist Julian Barber goes even further. He argues that time doesn't exist at all, that each moment is a complete, static configuration of the universe, what he calls a now. These nows are not flowing like water in a river. There is no river. You are a freeze frame among infinite. Freeze frames tricked by memory into believing in motion. Your memories, then, are not evidence of time. They are merely structural components of the now you happen to be experiencing. Are you breathing? Or do you just remember how to? Is the future something that waits for you, or something that's already watching? You lie down at night, thinking the world will continue spinning, that tomorrow will follow today, that the sun will rise. But none of these are guaranteed. They are part of the dream of time, and dreams do not guarantee a sequel. Perhaps you are not falling asleep at all. Perhaps sleep is just a now where your eyes are closed. And perhaps every time you blink, you slip into another, now entirely one that only feels like a continuation, because memory insists it must be dot. So ask yourself, what if you've already died, but your brain just hasn't realized it yet? The vacuum that isn't empty, close your eyes and picture emptiness, not silence, not stillness, but nothing. No particles, no atoms, no space, just pure absence. That's what you imagine when you hear the word vacuum. A blank, stage, a zero. But that isn't what physics sees out the vacuum. What you call empty space is seething with energy. Beneath the still surface of the universe, there is a storm. Virtual particles constantly flicker in and out of existence, borrowing energy from nothing, existing for just long enough to erase themselves, and leaving behind effects you can measure. This isn't theoretical woo-woo. It's Casimir plates repelling each other in a lab. It's the Lamb shift. It's Hawking radiation. It's real. Nothingness is unstable. This quantum foam isn't optional. It's built into the mathematics of quantum field theory. The uncertainty principle won't allow a true zero. The more precisely you try to measure the energy of empty space, the more violently it fluctuates. Reality itself is humming at a frequency you'll never hear. You are sitting on a bed of chaos and calling it rest. And yet, you still trust the space between things. You trust that the space between your atoms is meaningless, that the void between your fingertips is tame. But every inch of vacuum is filled with probabilistic turbulence. Fields that permeate all of space, Higgs, electromagnetic, strong nuclear, never switch off. There is no off. Even the energy of the vacuum has a name: zero-point energy. The lowest possible energy a quantum system can have. And it's not zero. It's never zero. Even when all else is removed, something vibrates. Always doubt if you cooled the universe to absolute zero, stripped away every particle, killed every motion, silenced every sound, you still wouldn't have emptiness. Because emptiness is a lie dot. And here's the paradox. If empty space is full of energy, then why doesn't it crush us? Quantum field theory estimates the vacuum energy density to be vast, catastrophic, enough to blow the entire cosmos apart. But our universe is not being ripped open by this energy. Some unknown force or mechanism is suppressing it. We call it the cosmological constant problem, one of the biggest unresolved mysteries in physics. The vacuum energy we observe is 10 times smaller than what theory predicts. That's a 1 with 120 zeros. the largest known discrepancy between prediction and observation in science. This isn't just a miscalculation. It's an insult to logic. Either our theory of quantum fields is wrong, or our understanding of gravity is broken. Which would you rather abandon? And as you lie in the dark, thinking about emptiness, let me show you what the dark really is. Dark energy makes up 68% of the universe. Not dark matter, dark energy. An unseen pressure that causes the expansion of space to accelerate. We don't know what it is. We only know that it behaves like negative pressure. Like the vacuum itself has an opinion about how large the universe should be. Think about that. The nothing between stars is pushing them apart. Nothingness is no longer passive. It is expanding the universe with every second, driving galaxies apart, diluting the possibility of contact, ensuring with every passing moment that you will never see further, never reach more, never connect with what lies beyond. The stars are not just distant, they are becoming more distant. Because the emptiness wants them to dot. Do you see the horror of this? Nothingness is not static. It is active. It is growing. And it is winning. There is a model in cosmology called vacuum metastability. It suggests that the vacuum we inhabit may not be the true vacuum, that we are living in a false minimum, an unstable state that could collapse into a lower energy state at any moment. This isn't science fiction. This is extrapolated from the known values of the Higgs field and top quark mass dot if our vacuum is metastable. Then someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a billion years, a quantum fluctuation could cause it to decay. A bubble of true vacuum would form. It would expand at the speed of light. It would rewrite the laws of physics. And we would never see it. Coming dot, it wouldn't destroy the universe. It would replace it dot every constant, every interaction, every particle. Gone. Replaced with a different configuration. A new reality incompatible with ours. No warning, no resistance. Just instant annihilation. Like a dream forgotten before it even ends. Are you still trying to fall asleep? There are theories that posit the vacuum is the only thing that truly exists. That particles themselves are just localized excitations in fields that never rest. Meaning, you are not made of stuff. You are made of disturbances in something deeper. Temporary ripples in an eternal medium. You have no edges. You have no core. You are vibration dot, so when you stare into space, hoping to see silence, understand that you're looking into a screaming engine, older than light, deeper than atoms, and more violent than fire. You were born from it. You return to it dot, and still, in your arrogance, you call it nothing. But if nothing is unstable, fluctuating, expanding, and possibly fatal, then what, exactly, are you sleeping inside? The observer that isn't you. You believe your eyes see the world as it is. That your mind is a mirror imperfect, perhaps, but honest. You think you are the observer, the one looking out, deciphering, judging reality. But quantum mechanics does not care what you believe. It does not care who you think you are. Because the moment you observe, you change the outcome. The double-slit experiment should have been simple. Fire a particle, a photon, an electron at a barrier with two slits. If the particle is a solid object, it will go through one slit or the other. If it is a wave, it will interfere with itself, producing a pattern on the screen behind. So, what did scientists see? Both. They saw both. When not observed, the particles acted like waves. They interfered with themselves. They passed through both. Slits simultaneously, existing in a superposition of paths. But when scientists measured which slit the particle went through, just placed a detector, everything changed. The interference vanished. The particles chose. They acted like particles. Not waves, Observation collapsed the wave function. Measurement rewrote reality. You think you're watching the universe, but maybe it's watching you. This is not just some weird lab trick. This is how electrons behave. This is how photons travel. The foundational elements of your reality do not behave like objective things. They behave like questions waiting for a witness. So, who is the witness? You say it's you. That your brain receives the light. That your mind makes sense of the image. But long before you see anything, your senses are lying. Your visual cortex fills in blind spots. Your neurons fire based on expectation, not fact. Your memories distort the present. And your attention is narrow, so narrow, it could not possibly capture what you think it does. And still, you believe you are the observer. But what if you're the observed? Physicist John Archibald Wheeler proposed the participatory universe. Hypothesis: that observation doesn't just reveal reality, it helps create it. In his delayed choice experiments, particles seem to decide whether to behave as a wave or a particle, based on measurements taken after they had already passed through the slits. Read that again. Your future decision can change the particles. Past. How do you build a reality on that? And then there's the quantum eraser. In 1999, scientists demonstrated that you could erase the witch path information after detection and still retrieve the interference pattern, meaning the past remains fluid, uncommitted, until you decide how much to know. Your knowledge reshapes the story. You do not witness a fixed world. You rewrite it by knowing God. Do you still think you're seeing the truth? And what does it mean to observe? Anyway, is a camera enough? A detector? Or does it require consciousness? This question has haunted physics for decades. Some interpretations, like the Copenhagen interpretation, demand to collapse something final. Others, like many worlds, claim that all outcomes happen and you merely find yourself in one. But if all possibilities exist, who are you? In many worlds, every quantum decision branches reality. When a particle takes one path, the universe splits, one where it went left, one where it went right. You exist in both, but you only remember one. Your life, your memories, your identity, just a single thread among infinite selves. And still, you cling to the idea of a stable you. You sleep each night thinking your mind will wake up intact. That your thoughts, your history, your selfhood are anchored. But identity is no more solid than a wave function. You are not a soul. You are not even a brain. You are a temporary configuration of particles, observing other particles and insisting they. Whole thing means something. But what if consciousness isn't the observer? What if it's the product? In neuroscience, there's no central observer. Number, homunculus behind your eyes. Just electrical activity, chemical cascades, and feedback loops. Your sense of self arises from distributed processes, from synchronization, from noise. There is no one at the controls. So who exactly is collapsing the wave function? Is it the eye? The brain? The universe observing itself? If consciousness affects particles, and particles create your consciousness, which came first? You say you make choices, that you observe and act, but quantum randomness governs the foundation of matter, and determinism governs the brain. Between uncertainty and inevitability, where is your will? You call yourself human, a person, a watcher, but maybe you're just a side effect of something watching itself. A flicker of awareness generated by particles collapsing into form just long. Enough to believe they were more than noise. So as you lie here in the dark, imagining yourself as a still point in a storm of uncertainty. Ask, if everything changes when it's observed, what happens when you look in the mirror? The memory that remembers wrong you trusts your memories more than anything. You use them to build your selfhood, to justify your emotions, to organize your understanding of who you are. You treat them as sacred archives, as if they were photographs stored in the vault of your mind. But they are not photographs. They are fiction. Neuroscience has known this for decades. Memory is not a recording. It is a reconstruction. Every time you recall something, your brain rewrites it. Neurons fire, chemicals flow, and the event is rebuilt, not retrieved. You are not accessing a file. You are redrawing a painting dot, and every time you redraw it, the colors shift. Elizabeth Loftus showed this with brutal precision. In her studies, people witnessed events, car accidents, crimes, mundane occurrences. And later, with just a few suggestive words, she could implant false details. A stop sign became a yield sign. A screwdriver became a hammer. A person who wasn't there suddenly appeared in the scene. You can be made to believe you saw what never happened. Now scale that up. Your first kiss, your childhood trauma, the night you cried alone. Are you sure it happened the way you remember? Or are you remembering a story you told yourself so many times that the lie became indistinguishable from truth? Your hippocampus, the brain's memory processor, is not a hard drive. It's a pattern-matching engine. It filters the present through the past, and in doing so, it contaminates both. This is not a flaw. It is how memory works. The emotional weight of a moment changes how it's encoded. Strong emotions, fear, shame, ecstasy, amplify neural firing. But they don't guarantee accuracy. They guarantee distortion. You think trauma makes your memory sharper, but trauma often shatters sequencing, muddles faces, compresses time, and you've built your personality on this debris. Flashbulb memories, those vivid snapshots of moments you swear are frozen in perfect clarity, are the most easily falsified. After 9/11s, after major tragedies, people across the world reported vivid memories of where they were, what they were doing, who told them. But when asked again months or years later, the stories shifted. They always shift. You don't remember the truth. You remember remembering. And yet, your sense of identity demands consistency. So your brain performs an edit, a cleanup. It rewrites the inconsistencies to preserve the narrative. You must be someone. You must be you. So your brain ensures you always have been. This isn't speculation. Brain scans show that each time you recall a memory, it becomes briefly unstable, susceptible to modification before being stored again. This is called reconsolidation. It means your past is not behind you. It is rewritten in real time. You are standing on a floor that repaints itself every time you look down. So what's under the paint? There's the Mandela Effect Collective. False memories, like remembering the Berenstain Bears as the Berenstain Bears, or believing Nelson Mandela died in prison before he actually did. People insist these memories are correct. They feel it, deep in their bones. But that feeling, that certainty, it's the same mechanism that fuels all memory. The brain does not store confidence levels. It stores emotional salience, which means your most convincing memories might be your most wrong ones. But it's worse than error. It's control, propaganda, advertising, religion, trauma, all manipulate memory. They overwrite your history so thoroughly that you no longer know what your original beliefs were. Childhood indoctrination isn't remembered as coercion. It's remembered as truth, because the memory of the manipulation was never encoded. So, how many of your convictions are just the residue of someone else's repetition? Think about sleep. You experience dreams, worlds, emotions, entire timelines. And when you wake, most of them evaporate. Not just fade, disintegrate. Where did they go? Were they ever real? Now ask this: how many of your waking memories are already gone? You think your life is a continuous thread, a sequence of remembered experiences stitched together into meaning. But research shows that most people retain only fragments. A few peak moments, the firsts, the lasts, the traumas, the highlights, the rest, a fog. Gone. Your identity is not a full story. It is a trailer. So what are you without memory? If a machine had your memories, but none of your emotions, would it be you? If your brain retained your memories, but lost its ability to feel them, Alzheimer's, dementia, injury, do you remain? Where is the self in a collapsing archive? Every time you dream, your brain constructs a self, one that runs, laughs, screams, believes, and then forgets. Why do you assume your waking self is any more stable? You believe you are the observer of your memories, that you sit outside them, reviewing the past. But neuroscience shows the opposite. Memory creates the self. You are what you recall. So when memory distorts, what's left? And if you are just a dynamic illusion held together by faulty recall, false stories, and emotional edits, who exactly is falling asleep right now? The brain that predicts you. You believe you experience reality directly, that your senses deliver the world to you, raw and unfiltered. You hear, you see, you touch, and from this, you construct truth. But the brain doesn't work that way. Your brain is not a camera. It is not a mirror. It is a prediction machine, a hallucination engine. And it has been lying to you since the moment you were born. At every moment, your brain is making guesses about what it's seeing, what it's hearing, what will happen next. These guesses come before sensation. They come faster than light, hitting the retina, faster than sound vibrating your eardrum. You do not perceive the world and then interpret it. You interpret the world before you perceive it. This is not metaphor. This is predictive processing theory, one of the most dominant models in cognitive neuroscience. It tells us that the brain is constantly generating internal models of reality, and then checking those models against incoming sensory input. The world doesn't shape your mind. Your mind shapes the world. What you experience as reality is just the prediction that your brain was least wrong about. When you see an object, chair, a hand, a face, your brain is not recognizing the object. It is predicting its presence based on past patterns. Your visual cortex fills in edges, colors, shadows, and movement. You don't see what's there. You see what you expect to be there. This is why optical illusions work. This is why you mishear lyrics, see faces in clouds, jump at shadows. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's functioning perfectly tuned to error correction, not truth. You believe you see a continuous world, but your eyes jump in saccades rapid movements, 3 to 5 times per second. Your brain stitches the jumps together and gives you the illusion of smoothness. You are not watching reality. You are watching an edited film with all the jarring cuts removed. You are your own deep fake. The same holds for sound. You hear a stream of voice, a melody, a crashing wave. But your ears are slow. They receive fragments, and your brain smooths those fragments into meaning. Even the sense of a single now, a present moment, is a construction, a blend of the last few hundred milliseconds of input, averaged together. You're not living in the moment. You're living after it. And pain, emotion, they follow the same predictive model. You don't feel pain because something hurts. You feel pain because your brain expects hurt. Phantom limb pain, psychogenic seizures, the placebo effect. All signs that sensation is forecasted before it's confirmed. So, what happens when the prediction becomes stronger than the input? You go mad. This is what happens in psychosis. The predictive models dominate. The brain begins to hallucinate, not because it's broken, but because it's too confident. It begins to see what it expects, regardless of evidence. It creates voices, faces, meaning. The input becomes irrelevant. The world becomes internal dot. And if you think you're immune, ask yourself, how do you know you're not already doing it? What if your sanity is just your predictions aligning well enough with consensus? Schizophrenia is not the invasion of madness. It is the collapse of predictive tolerance. A brain too sure of its models. And it is not a binary. It is a spectrum. Where? On that spectrum, do you sleep? Autism, too, may involve alterations in predictive processing. Too much attention to raw input, not enough to expected patterns. Anxiety disorders? Overestimation of threat prediction. Depression? Underprediction of positive outcomes. Every deviation of mind may be a deviation in expectation. You are not reacting to the world. You are reacting to predictions of it. Everything you feel, every thought you have, is a model anticipating input and updating itself when it's wrong. But what if it stops updating? Then you become a closed loop. This is the real horror, not that your brain is fallible, but that your brain is convinced it isn't, that it's built to believe itself, that it would rather be wrong than uncertain dot, and that means you never really see the world. You see a hallucination that your brain constructs to minimize surprise. You are not awake. You are dreaming with rules. Rules shaped by probability, memory, and prediction. A dream you mistake for reality because the alternatives are unbearable. Think of that moment when you flinch, expecting something to hit you, and it doesn't. That's the prediction engine. Glitching. That flash of unreality. That shock. Multiply it. Expand it. Stretch it across your whole life. Because everything you believe is built on the same engine. Even your idea of self. You think you are a thinker inside a body, a witness behind the eyes. But the brain's model of the body is just another prediction. It expects hands, it expects feet, it expects heartbeat. And it builds you around that model. But when the inputs change, the model doesn't always adapt. This is how out-of-body experiences occur. How people with parietal lobe damage stop recognizing their own limbs. How Cotard syndrome convinces people they're already dead. The model persists, even when the world contradicts it. So what is this you that insists it exists? A prediction about a prediction. A recursive hallucination. A guess the brain makes to organize its own guesses. And if that's true, then who exactly is dreaming who? The language that owns you. You speak because you think. You think because you are. That's the chain, right? That words come from thoughts, and thoughts come from you. But the truth is more inverted, more parasitic. You don't. Use language. Language uses you. You didn't choose your first words. They were given to you. Handed down from adults who had no idea what they were handing you. Each word carried weight, culture, expectation. Mama, mine, no. Little sounds each tied to emotions, images, control. You learned them before you understood the world. And once they were in you, they began to shape how you saw everything. You think in language, you feel in language, you suffer in language. But language is not neutral. It's a prison you were born into. A structure that carved boundaries into your experience. Because language does not describe reality, it creates it. The very act of labeling reduces. The moment you name something, you kill its complexity. A tree is not a tree. It is atoms. History, water, sun, decay, memory, breath. But your word compresses all of that into 4 letters. And so, you stop seeing it. Now scale up. Words like love, truth, self, freedom. You speak them like they're real. But they are placeholders. No universal meaning. Only shared hallucinations. If you had grown up with different words, You would have lived in a different world. This is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, the idea that the language you speak determines how you think, not influences determines. And there's evidence in languages that assign gender to objects. People associate masculine and feminine traits to them, regardless of logic. Germans describe bridges, feminine in German, as elegant, graceful. Spaniards, who use a masculine noun, say strong, sturdy. The object hasn't changed, only the word has. And the word warps perception. Even color is shaped by language. Some tribes have no word for blue. Show them a blue square among green ones, and they can't spot the difference. But show them a green shade they have a specific word for, and they see it instantly. Your eyes aren't failing. Your language is so what else can't you see? The Pirahu people of the Amazon have no words for exact numbers. They don't count, not one, not two, not many. And they get along just fine. But when tested, they cannot remember specific quantities. They are not stupid. They are not broken. Their reality does not require quantity. And so it does not emerge. Your thoughts feel infinite. But your language is finite. Every sentence you speak is a cage locking your experience into a structure it never asked for. You are not free to think anything. You are only free to think what your words allow. And words were not built for truth. They were built for survival, for manipulation, for alliance. Language evolved to shape social groups, not understand reality. It's why we lie so easily. Why we fall for slogans, mantras, chants. Why propaganda works. Words bypass reason. They do not just inform. They infect. Language is a virus with grammar. And yet, you trust your inner voice. That endless narration. The whisper that labels and judges. You think it's you, but it isn't. It's your training. Your programming. Every word you think has a lineage you didn't choose. You are speaking the ghost echoes of ancestors you've never met, shaped by wars you've never fought. Word I is not your name. It's your leash. Language allows you to describe emotion, but also flattens it. What does grief mean? You use the word like it points to something clean, but real grief is fluid, formless, pulsing. You compress it into a noun, and then wonder why people don't understand. Words simplify, but what if they simplify too much? Wittgenstein wrote, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." But he also said, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." You treat silence as absence, but it's where meaning lives, the inexpressible, the unspeakable, the true. But your brain doesn't allow silence for long. The inner monologue starts again. That voice, describing, narrating, naming. You are never without it. Even in sleep, language leaks in through dreams. You are colonized. And the worst part? You can't stop. Try right now. Stop thinking in words. Go ahead. You might get a few seconds, but then the voice returns. It must return. Because your identity, the you recognize, exists only in language. No narration, no self. So who are you without your words? What is left when the voice shuts off? And what if it never truly belonged to you in the first place? What if the voice in your head is just the world thinking through you? The self that isn't real. You speak of yourself as if it's a thing, a shape, a weight, something held in your chest or mind or name. You say, "This is who I am." But you don't finish the sentence. You can't, because the self you refer to does not exist. Not the way you think it does. There is no I inside your skull. No core, no fixed observer. There is no central control room behind your eyes where the real you sits, pulling levers, making choices, experiencing the show. That image is comforting and false. Neuroscience searched for that I. It never found it. Instead, it found fragments, dispersed modules, systems processing vision, movement, memory, emotion, none of them aware of the others. No unified consciousness, just parallel processes, loosely synchronized. And that voice in your head? That feeling of being one? It's not a pilot dot, it's a story. The neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga, in studying split-brain patients people whose left and right brain hemispheres had been severed, found something terrifying. The left hemisphere, when asked why the right hemisphere had done something, would invent a reason. A lie, instantly, smoothly, confidently got it didn't know the reason, but it needed one. So it told a story, and believed it. That's yourself. A narrative, a post hoc justification system, a PR agent managing chaos. Your brain acts. Then your self explains. This is the illusion of agency, of continuity, that you exist moment to moment, making choices. But the brain acts before you think. Experiments by Benjamin Libet and others showed that the decision to move a finger, an arm, anything is made by your brain before you are aware of choosing. The readiness potential spikes, and then, a few hundred milliseconds later, you experience. Deciding. Your consciousness is late to its own decisions. You are not driving the car. You are the passenger, watching the wheel turn and saying, yes, I meant to do that. But it gets worse. Who remembers those decisions? Memory is unreliable. You've already seen that. But memory also serves identity. It tells you what kind of person you are. I remember doing good things. I must be good. But those memories are curated, filtered. Your brain is not interested in truth. It is interested in coherence. Edit the past to preserve the illusion of a consistent self. You fill in gaps, omit contradictions, smooth over errors. And you do it automatically. Yourself is a myth your brain tells itself, so it won't go insane. And then there's the Buddhist insight, thousands of years ahead of neuroscience. The self is ena to no self, a bundle of experiences, sensations, thoughts, and perceptions with no unifying center. You are not the owner of experience. You are the experience, unfolding moment by moment. But the ego fights this, because to accept that the self is an illusion is to die before you die. And yet, every tool of science confirms it. Your preferences change, your personality changes. Your opinions, your desires, your behaviors fluid, mutable, contextual, and yet you still point to them and say, this is me. Why? Because you need something to anchor to, some center. Even if that center is a lie, the philosopher Derek Parfit argued that personal identity is not what matters. That continuity of self is not real. What matters is psychological connectedness, a loose chain of memories and experiences. If those vanish, you vanish. You are not a thing. You are a process. A flame, not a candle. But a flame cannot hold itself. So ask yourself this. When you say, I, what do you mean? Is it your body? Bodies decay, change, regrow every 7 years. Nearly every cell is replaced. Is it your thoughts? You don't control your thoughts. They arise unbidden, triggered by noise, emotion, hormones. You are not the thinker. You are the thought. Is it your soul? Then define it without theology, without metaphor. Show me where it hides. You say, I am me. But who said that? Which part of you? And which part is listening? The truth is simpler and colder. There is no self. There is only sensation, only perception, a flux, and a voice in your head narrating the chaos, pretending it's a person. So tonight, when you close your eyes and expect to, wake up as yourself. Who do you think will be opening them? The free will that never was you tell yourself you're making choices. That right now, you're deciding to read these words. That you could stop at any moment, stand up, walk away. That your actions are yours. That your will is free. But this is the most beautiful lie you've ever believed. Let's begin with the science. In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet ran an experiment that would fracture the illusion of freedom. Participants were told to press a button whenever they felt like it while watching a rapidly moving clock. They had to note the precise moment they became aware of the urge to move. Libet measured brain activity, and what he found was disturbing. The readiness potential, a spike of neural activity that signals motor preparation, occurred hundreds of milliseconds before the participant reported the conscious decision to move. The brain had already started the process. The choice came after dot. Your decision is the last part of the chain, not the first. That many tried to dismiss the results. But experiment after experiment followed, confirming the same eerie truth. Even complex decisions show predictive neural patterns before conscious awareness got your brain decides. Then your consciousness catches up and tells itself a story. But maybe it's all just neurons, right? Maybe it's not about choice, but electrical signals. So let's go deeper. Into physics. At the level of particles, the universe operates by rules. The Standard Model, the Schrödinger equation. All motion, all energy, all states governed by math. If we assume the universe is deterministic, then every event is the inevitable result of prior causes. Your birth, your heartbreaks, your choices. Every neuron fired because of previous neuron firings, like dominoes, falling. So where in that chain do you place free will? But maybe you think quantum mechanics allows freedom. After all, it introduces randomness. True, unpredictable outcomes. Maybe your choices emerge from that? But randomness is not freedom. If your choices are determined, they are not free. If they are random, they are not yours. There is no third option. Compatib ally sts argue that freedom means acting according to your desires and intentions, regardless of what causes them. But this is a trick of language. If your desires were implanted by biology, by childhood, by trauma, then whose are they? Did you choose your genes? Did you choose your parents? Did you choose the culture that defined good and bad, right and wrong? No. You inherited a mind you never asked for. You are not a captain steering a ship. You are a ship dreaming of a captain. Even your morals, your deepest convictions, are products of evolution and conditioning. You recoil from pain, seek pleasure, follow reward cues. Even empathy is a neurological shortcut, not a virtue. Mirror neurons, dopaminergic pathways. Synaptic plasticity. Why is the soul in all this circuitry? Philosopher Galen Strawson calls it the basic argument. You do what you do because of the way you are, but you didn't choose the way. You are . So you are not ultimately responsible for what you do. Let that sink in. Every crime, every sacrifice, every betrayal, every moment of forgiveness, none of it authored, just outcomes of prior causes. So what's left? You want to say, but I feel like I'm choosing. Yes, and a thermostat feels like it's controlling the heat. The feeling of agency is an evolved sensation, useful, motivating, deeply persuasive. But a feeling is not a fact. Experiments with transcranial magnetic stimulation have shown that you can stimulate a person's motor cortex and make their hand move, and the person will say they chose to move it. Reverse engineered freedom. Even the illusion of choice is not under your control. So, why did evolution create the illusion at all? Because it helps you survive. It builds accountability, social order, it allows guilt. And guilt produces correction. Regret, repentance. Society depends on the lie of authorship. And yet, you cling to it. Because without free will, your achievements mean nothing. Your failures aren't yours. Your sacrifices are mechanical. Your sins are structural. So you invent a self. You invent a chooser. But ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you chose your desires? You want what you want. You fear what you fear. You flinch, you crave, you act, and only afterward do you construct the rationale. The will is not free. It is post-justified. So now, lying still, you might think, if I have no free will, what's the point? But maybe that's the wrong question. The real question is, if you are not the author of your life, then who or what is writing it? A time that doesn't flow you, live your life as if time is moving, as if there is a present moment slicing forward, carrying you from the past into the future. You say things like, time is passing or moving on, as though time is a current and you are its passenger. But physics disagrees. Time doesn't move. You do. Einstein shattered the illusion of absolute time. In his theory of special relativity, time is not universal. It is not fixed. It bends and stretches depending on speed and gravity. Two observers moving at different velocities will experience different durations. What is now for one may be then for another. This is not theory. This is fact. Proven by satellites, clocks, and countless experiments. So whose now is real? Neither. Because time is not a flowing river. It is a dimension, like width, like height. All of it past, present, and future exists simultaneously. This is the block universe theory. It posits that time is a static four-dimensional structure. You are not moving through it. You are located within it. Your entire life is already there. Every birthday, every trauma, every forgotten Tuesday afternoon, not behind you, not ahead of you, fixed, in place, immutable. You are not becoming. You already are. The future doesn't unfold. It already is. You don't watch the movie. You are the movie already printed, frame by frame. Your experience of movement is just the illusion created by your consciousness scanning those frames. You think the past is gone, that the future hasn't happened. But in the block universe, those concepts collapse. Time doesn't pass. Events don't happen. They just are. You don't live your life moment by moment. You are all of your moments simultaneously. You just don't remember them, because your mind is a one-directional interpreter. Why do you remember the past, but not the future? Entropy. The second law of thermodynamics says entropy disorder always increases over time. It gives time an arrow, a direction. But entropy isn't about time, it's about probability. It's more likely for systems to become disordered than ordered. That's it. That's the only reason time feels like it flows, because of the statistical preference for chaos. But the fundamental laws of physics, Newtonian mechanics, electromagnetism, quantum field theory are time-symmetric. They work the same forward. And backward, there is no preferred direction, no objective past or future, just states. So why do you feel time moving? Because you are a pattern detection machine living in a body that decays. You perceive change, and your brain stitches change into narrative, into cause and effect. But that stitching is artificial. Memory gives the illusion of sequence. Sequence gives the illusion of motion, and motion gives the illusion of time. But what if memory is a glitch? There are conditions where this becomes visible. In temporal lobe epilepsy, patients report déjà vu so strong they believe they are reliving time. In focal seizures, people claim to see the future describing events before they happen. And in split brain patients, each hemisphere can experience time differently, constructing separate timelines. What happens when your perception of time diverges from itself? You become multiple dot. Your entire sense of identity rests on time's arrow. Without it, there is no before or after, no growth, no narrative. You dissolve into fragments moments, UNANCHORED. Now imagine waking up tomorrow and remembering the future, instead of the past, seeing what hasn't happened yet, not as prediction, but as memory. You'd still feel like you, wouldn't you? But the direction is reversed. The timeline is meaningless. Your perception isn't the truth. It's a convention dot, and then there's the Andromeda paradox. Two people walking past each other on Earth, just walking, might disagree on whether a war in the Andromeda galaxy has already started or not because they are far away, because they are moving differently. What's happening in the present depends on where you are and how fast you move dot, so whose present is real? And if the answer is all of them, then the present is not a slice, it's a smudge, a variable, a hallucination of consensus. You say, time heals, but time doesn't do anything. It is not a force, not a river. It is a dimension that does not notice you. You say, I'm running out of time, but you can't run out of something that doesn't move. You say, the moment is gone. But in the block universe, nothing is ever gone dot. It's all still there. You just can't reach it, and you never will dot. So tonight, as you lie there, watching the seconds blink forward, on a clock that's already written your last breath, what part of you still believes that tomorrow hasn't already happened? The universe that shouldn't exist, you wake up assuming there is a world, that matter exists, that energy moves, that the stars are real. You think it's all there outside of you, physical and dependable. But beneath it all lies a deeper, colder question. Why is there anything at all? Physics has no answer dot. In fact, it doesn't even like the question. You were born into a world of something, but the rules of physics suggest that nothing would have been far more stable, far more natural. The equations that govern the cosmos don't require the universe to exist. And yet here it is dot, and here you are. But for how long? Let's begin with the cosmological constant lambda, a tiny number Einstein once added to his equations, then called his biggest blunder. It represents the energy density of space itself, vacuum energy. The strange thing is, quantum field theory predicts that empty space should have a staggering amount of energy, enough to rip the universe apart instantly. But it DOESN single quotes T dot, because when we measure it, the actual value of the cosmological constant is off by a factor of 10 from the quantum prediction. That's a 1 with 120 zeros. This isn't a typo. This is the biggest discrepancy between theory and observation in the history of science. It's like predicting a mountain and finding a dust grain. How is this possible? We don't know dot. It's as if the universe is perfectly, almost impossibly, fine-tuned for existence. A billion tiny parameters, gravity, electromagnetism, the masses of fundamental particles all balanced on a razor's edge. If the strong nuclear force were just 2% weaker, atoms couldn't form. If gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn out too fast. If dark energy were slightly different, galaxies couldn't cluster dot. The chance of these values randomly falling into the narrow band that allows life any life is effectively 0 dot, so you're left with two choices: design or chance multiplied by infinity. Physicists often default to the multiverse, the idea that our universe is just one of many, an infinite number of universes, each with different constants. And of course, we exist in this one because we couldn't exist in the others. But this is no explanation. It's a statistical sidestep dot, and even worse, there's no way to test it. The multiverse makes your life feel small. Your choice is irrelevant. Your planet a speck in a sea of specks, floating in a meaningless foam of cosmic possibilities. And yet, even this terrifying vastness can't answer the question that haunts cosmology. Why is there something instead of nothing? Theoretical physics digs deeper and finds less dot in quantum mechanics. Particles arise from the vacuum. They fluctuate into existence, virtual particles, blinking into being and vanishing in femtoseconds. So maybe the universe began this way too? A fluctuation? But fluctuations require time, require laws, require a stage to occur on dot. So where did the laws come from? If nothing is truly nothing, no space, no time, no laws, then there can be no cause, no fluctuation, no possibility, nothing. And yet, here you are, but you shouldn't be dot in. Fact, matter itself shouldn't be. According to the Standard Model, the Big Bang should have produced equal parts matter and antimatter. They would have annihilated each other, leaving behind only radiation. No stars, no planets, no you, but something tipped the scale. For every billion pairs of matter and antimatter, there was one extra particle of matter. Just one. That one survived. That one built galaxies. Why? We don't know. We call it baryon asymmetry. We don't understand it. We can't replicate it. We only know that without it, you wouldn't exist to ask these questions. And still, you pretend the world is normal. You go to sleep assuming your bed will exist tomorrow, that the laws will hold, that gravity won't forget you. But the deeper you look, the more fragile it all becomes, the more absurd. Even time, your most basic experience, may be an illusion. Some physicists believe time is emergent, not fundamental, a byproduct of entropy or consciousness or information flow. So if time can emerge, then it can also disappear. And with it, you crave cause, order, a why. But maybe there is no why. Maybe the universe is not a question, but a brute fact, unknowable, unanswerable, existing for no reason at all. Or worse, maybe it's a mistake, a glitch in the fabric of nothing, a hiccup in non-existence, something that was never meant to happen, but did. And now it has to keep happening until entropy wipes it clean. So tonight, as you close your eyes and imagine yourself drifting into tomorrow, what if tomorrow only exists because the void hasn't noticed you yet? The brain that makes up reality. What you see is not what's there. Not because of illusion, not because of deception, but because there is no there the way you think there is. What your eyes deliver is not reality. It's data, uninterpreted, chaotic, meaningless data. And your brain weaves it into fiction. You look at a red apple. You say, it is red, but physics doesn't see red. Light hits the apple and reflects certain wavelengths. Red is your brain's interpretation of electromagnetic radiation between approximately 620 to 750 nanometers. That color doesn't exist. In the world, it exists in your mind, and the apple? It's mostly empty space. Protons, neutrons, electrons all spinning in probability clouds. No solid surface, no smooth skin, just energy fields repelling other fields. When you touch the apple, no atoms actually touch. You are feeling electromagnetic resistance, and your brain tells you it's smooth. You never touch the world. You touch your brain's guess about the world. Take vision. The retina has a blind spot where the optic nerve exits the eye. No photoreceptors, no image, yet you never see the gap. Why? Your brain fills it in with guesswork, with inference. You are hallucinating wholeness, and you always have been. Your brain receives two-dimensional input flat images on your retina, yet you see in 3D, depth, distance, shape, motion constructed in your cortex. You're not seeing space, you're inferring it. You're modeling it, and the modeling never stops. Your brain is a closed system. It never leaves the skull. All it has are electrical signals from your senses. And yet it constructs everything faces. Sounds, objects, pain, emotion, time, self-dot. So what happens when those signals break? You see ghosts, hear voices, smell things that aren't there. This isn't madness. This is standard operation without proper input. Charles Bonnet syndrome. Blind people seeing vivid hallucinations, faces, patterns, entire scenes because their visual cortex is idle and fills the void. Tinnitus. Phantom sound in the absence of external noise. Your brain invents it. Phantom limb pain. Agony in a body part that no longer exists. Your brain maps it anyway. You don't perceive reality. You simulate it, and those simulations can be hacked. You can feel a rubber hand as your own if it's stroked. In sync with your real hand. You can hear a nonsense word and swear it has meaning if the right tone is used. You can see a face in clouds, hear speech in white noise, experience presence in an empty room. Why? Because your brain doesn't want the truth. It wants predictability. If you've seen something often enough, your brain will fill it in automatically, even if it's not there. That's why you can read a sentence with jumbled letters or drive for miles in a fog and still see the road. So ask yourself, where does the hallucination end? The brain processes about 11 million bits of information per second, but consciousness handles only about 40. That's 0.00004%. Everything else is edited out. You are not seeing the world. You are seeing a sliver of it, pre-filtered, pre-chewed. Safe. And sometimes, even those 40 bits lie. You hear your name in a crowded room. It wasn't said, but your brain is biased to detect it. You see movement in the corner of your eye. There was none. But your ancestors survived by overreacting. Evolution didn't shape your brain for accuracy. It shaped it for survival. Truth was optional. Consistency was king. So the architecture of perception is built on error, layered illusions, efficient shortcuts. And this is why you can believe things that aren't true. Not just see them, but feel them. Your emotional brain can override logic. Your expectations can rewrite sensation. Placebo, nocebo, groupthink, hallucination. You live in a dream that reacts to itself. And then there's the most disturbing experiment of all, the Ganzfeld effect. Sit in complete sensory uniformity. Eyes exposed to diffuse light, ears fed white noise, and your brain, deprived of pattern, begins to invent one. People report vivid visions, voices, entire scenes. Not because they're insane, but because the brain cannot tolerate nothing. It must fill the void. So imagine this. What you call reality is just the least distorted hallucination that your brain can sustain. Your senses are unreliable. Your memory is corrupt. Your expectations skew your inputs. Your consciousness is filtered through all of it. So what's left? Who's watching the movie if the screen is always inside the projector? And if the world outside your skull is unknowable, unseeable, untouchable, then how? Do you know anything exists at all? The memory that never happened. You think you remember. That your past is a film you can rewind. That your childhood, your trauma, your triumphs are all locked in storage, untouched, retrievable, whole. But your memory is not a record. It is a story, a reconstruction, a lie told in sincerity. You don't recall the past. You reassemble it. Each time you remember an event, your brain rewrites it, adds details, drops others, edits the timeline, enhances the emotion. Your memory isn't pulling a file from a drawer. It's rewriting a novel from scattered notes. And when you put it away again, it's the new version that gets stored. Memory is not passive. It's reconstructive, and every recollection makes it less accurate. Consider the misinformation effect. If someone describes an event you experienced using different language, you begin to remember it their way. Ask people how fast two cars were going when they smashed into each other versus when they contacted. The estimates of speed change. Even the memory of broken glass that wasn't there appears. The words reshape the memory, or the lost in the mall experiment. Researchers told participants a false story, that as a child, they were once lost in a mall. After repeated questioning, many participants began to recall the event. Not just accept it, remember it. Describe it. Feel it. What you remember does not have to be true. And what's worse, you never know which memories are false. Even flashbulb memories, those vivid recollections of shocking moments, like 9/11s or the death of a loved one, are flawed. People feel certain of them, but when followed up over time, the details change. The confidence remains. Emotion doesn't make memories accurate. It makes them stickier, louder, not clearer. Now think about your earliest memory. Is it real? Studies show that most people's first memories are likely fabricated fragments of stories told by others, stitched together with photos and emotion. Children before the age of 3 to 4 have little capacity for autobiographical memory. What you think you remember from infancy may be something you inherited. So where does that leave your identity? If your memories are wrong, what is left of you? You define yourself by your past. I am this way because that happened. But if that never truly happened, if it changed every time you thought about it, then what exactly are you? A narrative artifact. A character in a story whose chapters keep being rewritten, and your brain protects this story. Through confabulation, it fills in gaps with plausible fictions. Through confirmation bias, it favors information that reinforces existing beliefs. Through source amnesia, it forgets where memories came from. Was it a dream? A movie? A conversation? You can't tell, even know. There are moments you swear happened a certain way, but they didn't. Conversations that never occurred. Feelings that were never shared. And you will never know they were false, because your memory isn't built for truth. It's built for continuity. It tells you a stable story so you can function. Even trauma doesn't escape. You think traumatic. Memories are sealed, unchangeable scars in your mind. But they too are subject to revision. They become darker with retelling, or lighter. They get shaped by guilt, shame, survival. And then there's memory implantation. People can be convinced by suggestion, by authority, by imagination, that they committed crimes they never committed, confessed in detail, cried, collapsed under the weight of guilt for things they never did. And if memory is this malleable, then what about everything else you believe? Your relationships are based on shared recollections. Your pain, your healing, your decisions all anchored in moments that may no longer resemble what actually happened. If memory is a house, it's built on fog. So who are you? A person who believes things. That's all. And belief has no loyalty to fact. So tonight, as you lie there replaying the reel of your life, the first kiss, the betrayal, the loss, the joy, you are watching a film that's been edited so many times, no original cut remains. And when the credits roll, what if the scenes that made you never actually happened? The consciousness that can't be found you believe you are conscious, that there is a you inside, looking out, that your thoughts are happening to someone, that the taste of your coffee, the sting of regret, the warmth of a hand, held these belong to an observer. But no science has ever found the observer, not once. This is the hard problem of consciousness coined by philosopher David Chalmers. Not the problem of how the brain processes information or how neurons fire, Those are easy problems. The hard problem is this. Why does it feel like anything at all? Why does neural activity give rise to experience? You can simulate a brain, map every neuron, model every signal, but none of it explains the feeling of being alive. The vivid now, the inner film. You can know everything about how red is processed in the brain, but that doesn't explain what redness is. That shimmering qualia, the raw feel of existence is. Absent from every equation dot, and yet, it's all you have. Your consciousness is the only thing you cannot doubt. Even if everything is illusion, the experience of illusion is real. You know you are conscious, but you don't know how, or why dot, and neither does anyone else. Neuroscience has tried to locate consciousness. In the prefrontal cortex, in the thalamus, in the claustrum, a thin sheet of neurons connecting disparate parts of the brain. But every time it seems close, the answer slips. Because these structures aren't experience. They're just correlated with it, dot, and correlation isn't identity. Dot, we know you can remove parts of the brain entire hemispheres in children and consciousness persists. We know that people in locked-in syndrome fully paralyzed have rich inner lives. We know that in dreamless sleep, consciousness vanishes, even though the brain is active dot. So what is it? Some say it's emergent, that consciousness appears when complexity reaches a critical point, like water becoming wet. But wetness is still measurable. Consciousness is not. Others argue for panpsychism, that consciousness is a fundamental property of matter, like mass or charge. That everything electrons, rocks, air, has some tiny glimmer of awareness. Not thoughts, not selfhood, but experience. And your brain, in its complexity, simply assembles it like drops into an ocean. But this, too, is unprovable, because you cannot measure experience from the outside. You can only report it from within dot, and even integrated information theory, a leading model, only gives you math. A value called phi, meant to represent how integrated a system's information is. High phi means high consciousness. But phi doesn't feel. It just calculates. None of this answers why you're in there. Why not nothing? This question gnaws. Because every material thing is explainable, except the thing doing the explaining. Your brain can model anything. Except itself dot, it's a paradox. And if consciousness is unexplainable, what does that mean for science? It means there is a limit, a blind spot at the very center of perception. You can never know what it's like to be someone else. You will never leave your own head. You will never experience objectivity. You are trapped dot, and the trap is invisible. Worse, some theories suggest you don't even exist as a thing. That consciousness is an illusion produced by simpler cognitive systems communicating. Like the global workspace theory, where unconscious processes compete for attention, and the winner gets broadcast to the rest of the brain. Consciousness, in this view, is just a spotlight, not a person. And yet, you still feel like you. You feel unified, continuous, centered. But this may be a trick, a user interface. Donald Hoffman argues that perception evolved not for truth, but for fitness. That your experience is not the world, but a dashboard-like. Icons on a screen. You click folder, but there is no folder. Just code dot. So what is your consciousness? An icon, a simplification, a beautiful, persistent hallucination with no grounding in physical reality. And still, we don't question it. Because to question consciousness is to question existence itself. To ask, who is asking? And if no one is there to answer, then who is dreaming all of this right now? The death that already happened, you think of death as a future event dot, something that lies ahead. A destination you'll arrive at someday. The final chapter. The end of your story. But what if it's not ahead of you? What if it's already happened? Not metaphorically, Not spiritually, physically, cognitively, neurologically. Let's begin with the time it takes to die. You imagine it as a moment of last breath, a flatline, a final flicker. But death is not a point. It is a process, one that has no clear boundary. The heart may stop, the brain may go dark, but for minutes, sometimes hours, electrical signals still dance. Cells still communicate. Memory still flickers dot in clinical death. The heart has stopped, but the brain can still function briefly. Some people report vivid experiences, tunnels, light, floating above their bodies. Are these spiritual visions? No, they're the final gasp of neurons, flooding with activity in the absence of oxygen. Your last moments may be the most intense illusions your brain has ever created. But then comes the deeper truth. You die constantly. Every second, cells die by the millions. Every 7 years, nearly every cell in your body is replaced. The body you inhabit today is not the one you were born with. Not even close. You are a ship rebuilt plank by plank. So where is the you in that? Your brain changes too. Neurons die and regenerate. Synapses fade. Memory decays. Every thought alters your brain's structure. The person you were at 10 is gone. The person you were yesterday is fading. You are a series of deaths stitched together by the illusion of continuity. And now consider biocentrism, the theory proposed by Robert Lanza. It argues that consciousness doesn't experience the universe, it creates it. That time and space are tools of perception, not physical truths. That death, as you conceive it, is meaningless because there is no objective time to begin with. You were never in the world. The world was in you. So what does death mean in a universe like that? Or take eternalism, the block universe again. If time is static, if all moments exist simultaneously, then your birth, your life, your death all coexist. You're not moving through time. You're embedded in it. Your death is already there, as real as this moment. You're just not perceiving it yet, but someone else might be. Imagine your funeral, the people, the silence, the memories spoken aloud. That moment is not in the future. It is already printed in space-time, as fixed as this breath. You just haven't reached the frame. Yet the film is done. You live as though death is unfair, as though something is being taken from you. But what is being taken? A few decades of experience you did not ask for? A body you did not build? A mind you did not design? You had no say in arriving, but why do you demand one in leaving? Then there is thanatosis, the death-feigning instinct in animals. When confronted by danger, they go limp, simulate death, surrender to stillness. This is not cowardice, it is strategy. Because sometimes, the only way to survive is to mimic the thing you fear. And humans do it too. The freeze response, dissociation, emotional numbness. You simulate death every time you shut down. Every time you say, I feel nothing. That blankness is a rehearsal, a biological foreshadowing. And deep down, you know it. Death hides in everything. In the endings you deny, in the memories you avoid, in the people you once were and can never become again. Grief is not about others. Grief is time's way of teaching you your own extinction. But what if you're already dead? What if this is the flicker before blackout? What if the you reading this is just the brain's final echo? They say life flashes before your eyes. But what if it doesn't just flash? What if it unfolds? In your last moment, the brain, starved of oxygen, accelerates time. It loops your memories, your thoughts, your fears into a final narrative. Maybe this right knows that story. A recursive illusion of life, playing in the moment after death. So if you're reading this in the dark, heart slowing, breath shallow, ask yourself, what if the life you remember is already over and you're just dreaming? the identity that was never yours. You wear your name like it's armor. You say, I am, followed by labels. Daughter, son, artist, failure, believer, survivor. You stack these titles like bricks and build a house called identity. And then you lock yourself inside it. Because if you aren't those things, who are you? You think your identity's your own. But where did you get it? From your language, from your culture, from the people who named you before you could speak, from the rewards you were given and the punishments you feared, from stories told about you when you were too young to protest, from roles you stepped into because there were no other costumes. You did not invent yourself, inherited yourself, and even that was edited. Your native tongue limits what you can think. If your language has no word for grief, how can you describe it? If your culture denies sadness, how can you allow it? If your faith tells you what is right before you understand what is true, how can you ever separate the two? Your identity was built inside a box, and then you were told the box was you. But boxes don't have mirrors. You mistake your reflection in others for your own face. Every compliment, every insult, every gaze, every silence, you absorb it. Turn it inward. Fold it into your story. You are a patchwork of perceptions, a quilt of expectation. Even your rebellion is shaped by the thing you rebelled against. But what happens when you stop performing? When you sit alone in a room, no job title, no clothing, no audience, no task, who is left? There is no core. No solid you under the masks. The psychologist Erik Erikson argued that identity is a process, not a possession. It evolves across your life, shifting with age and trauma. You are not who you were 5 years ago, and 5 years from now, you won't be this either. So who are you in between? A blur, a transition dot, and then there's social identity theory. You categorize yourself into in-groups and out-groups, race, religion, politics, nationality. But the stronger your identification with a group, the more blind you become to the individual. Yourself included, you dissolve into the crowd, not because it's safe, but because it tells you who to be. You inherit slogans instead of beliefs. Wear causes like costumes. Shout words you don't fully understand, not because you're insincere, but because you were never taught how to be alone with the silence of not knowing. But identity is more than labels. It's also the pain you hide. The person you pretend to be when you smile at someone you hate. The words you never say because they would unmake you. The desires you bury so deep, even you can't hear them anymore. And when you forget them long enough, they become shadows. You say, I'm not that kind of person. But what if you are? Carl Jung called this the shadow self, everything you deny in yourself, shoved into the basement. But the basement leaks in dreams, in addictions, in the person you become when no one is watching. You are not one thing. You are a war between parts of yourself that refuse to speak, and memory doesn't help, because you forget every version of you that didn't survive. The child who cried in the dark, the teenager who thought they'd never escape, the adult who whispered, I can't do this, and still did. You forget those people, but they are still inside you, dying, again and again, every time you say, I'm fine, and still, you carry on. You become what others need. You become what's convenient. You become the version of yourself that causes the least disruption. You settle for being recognizable instead of being real. But what if the real you never formed? What if the person you believe yourself to be is just a looping narrative, revised and repackaged to survive the shifting tides of expectation? And if that's true, who would you be if everyone forgot your name? The language that thinks for you, you speak, and you think you're expressing something that was already inside you. But what if you're not expressing thought? What if you're creating it? Language is not just a tool. It's the frame, the structure, the scaffolding your consciousness is built on. Every word you use doesn't just describe your world, it constructs it. You think in sentences. You dream in dialogue. You narrate your life in private whispers. But what came first, your thoughts or the words to shape them? Consider this. If your language has no word for regret, can you regret? Can you even feel what you can't name? In 1940, Benjamin Horff proposed a chilling idea: linguistic relativity. The language you speak doesn't just influence how you think, it limits it. Cultures with no past tense verbs struggle to imagine the past. Languages without number words can't conceive of exact quantities. In the Perahu tribe of the Amazon, the concept of more than three simply doesn't exist. So what are you? A creature imprisoned by vocabulary. You don't think freely. You think in pre-written code. Your mind runs on software you didn't program. English, Urdu, French, binary systems of syntax and semantics implanted in you before you could question them. Language thinks for you. Even your internal voice isn't yours. It's inherited, accented, learned through mimicry. That whisper narrating your life? That's not your soul. That's your culture speaking through you. You didn't invent the words you think with. You downloaded them, and now they tell you what's real. Let's go further. When you see an object, say, a chair, you recognize it instantly, but only because your mind labels it. Without language, it's just a collection of shapes and textures. But your brain, fluent in symbols, collapses the raw data into a concept, a thing with a purpose, a word. Remove the word, and the object dissolves. Language is not neutral. It brings order to chaos, but at the price of distortion. You see what your language allows, and you ignore what it cannot frame. When children learn language, they don't just learn nouns and verbs. They inherit categories: good, bad, male, right, wrong, real, fake. These binaries define your world before you ever choose to accept them. You didn't decide these boundaries. You just obey them. Even your emotions are categorized. You don't feel raw sensation. You feel anger, love, grief, prepackaged feelings with assigned names, colors, behaviors. But what if you feel something that has no word? What if your sorrow doesn't fit inside sadness? What happens to the pieces of your heart that have no translation? They get discarded. Unlabeled emotion is unprocessed. Your brain ignores what it can't describe. So what parts of you have already been deleted? And then there's writing. You write to make sense of yourself. But what are you really doing? You're translating fleeting, fluid experience into fixed, linear code. A single sentence kills infinite possibilities. It renders a moment static when the mind is dynamic. Every time you write, you amputate meaning. And yet, without writing, you forget. So you must lose truth to preserve memory. That you must choose precision over complexity. Language forces reduction. It demands you simplify what cannot be simplified. You say, I miss her, but that phrase cannot carry the weight in your bones. You say, I'm fine, but that word is a mask stretched over agony. Language gives you survival, but denies you total honesty. And the ultimate irony? You are reading this now, and the very act of reading is reshaping your mind. These words are not ideas. They are symbols your brain is decoding, chunk by chunk, into images, emotions, associations. And in the process, your neural pathways are altering permanently. You will not be the same after this. Paragraph. You think you're in control of language. Every sentence you read, every word you speak, is quietly rewriting you. So tonight, as you lie there with words spinning in your skull, labels, stories, phrases passed down from tongues you never met, ask yourself, if your language vanished, tomorrow, would there be anything left of you to speak? A free will that was never yours, you believe you choose. You think you decide what to eat, what to believe, who to love, when to stop, when to speak. You feel your choices echo in your chest, loud and certain. You believe in accountability, in responsibility, in will, but there is no freedom in your decisions. Only the illusion of it. Start with the simplest, truth. Your brain makes decisions before you are aware of them. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet discovered that electrical activity in the brain, the readiness, potential precedes conscious decisions by several hundred milliseconds. You think you chose to move your finger, but the signal to do so began before your awareness of the urge. You were already committed before you decided. Modern brain scans have pushed this further. In some studies, scientists can predict your decisions up to 10 seconds before you make them, just by watching your brain's activity. Long before you feel the flicker of a choice, it has been made. So who chose? You say, but I can change my mind. Can you? What triggered the change? A thought? A feeling? A memory? All of which emerged from neural networks shaped by biology and experience. You didn't build those. They built you. You are not the author of your mind. You are its echo. Every preference you hold, coffee or tea, silence or music, rage or restraint, is a product of genes, culture, trauma, chemistry. You did not choose your childhood. You did not choose your neurons. You did not choose the limits of your attention or the shape of your desires, but they choose for you every second. Even your most spontaneous actions are conditioned. You think you improvise, but improvisation is just pattern recognition at high speed. You choose from available options. Options filtered by what you've known, what you've felt, what you've feared. And then you justify it after the fact. You are a story your brain tells itself to feel like it's in control. This is called confabulation, the invention of reasons to explain actions already taken. Split brain patients, whose hemispheres cannot communicate, will perform an action prompted by one side of the brain and then invent a completely false reason for it, believing it fully. They believe the lie because it feels real. So do you. Free will requires agency, but agency requires origin. And there is no origin inside you that isn't already determined by something else. Determinism isn't an idea. It's physics. Every atom in your body obeys natural laws. Cause and effect. Momentum. Force. Electrons don't choose to orbit. Neurons don't choose to fire. They respond to prior states, to physical laws. You are made of these reactions. And if your components are not free, how can the whole be? You may want to believe in compatibilism, the philosophical escape hatch that says free will and determinism can coexist. That as long as you're not coerced, you're free. But this is semantic gymnastics. It changes the meaning of free within to something softer, something palatable. It hides the horror. The truth is, you are a system. Inputs, processing, output, like a weather pattern, like a computer, like a chain reaction of falling dominoes. The feeling of choosing is just that, a feeling. And feelings are not facts. You say, I could have chosen differently, but could you? Run the universe again, atom by atom, exactly as it was. Would you choose anything else? Or would every decision fall the same way, in the same sequence, toward the same end? And if the answer is yes, then could is a lie. So what is punishment? If there is no choice, what is guilt? What is pride? What is you? You believe in consequences, in judgment, in success earned and mistakes owned. But if no one chooses, then no one deserves. You don't deserve your victories, nor your failures. They were handed to you by molecules, dot. So tonight, as you lie in bed, reflecting on the choices you made today, the call you avoided, the person you kissed, the thing you didn't say, ask yourself, if your life has already been written, line by line, neuron by neuron, who exactly do you think is holding the pen? The free will that was never yours. You believe you choose. You think you decide what to eat, what to believe, who to love, when to stop, when to speak. You feel your choices echo in your chest, loud and certain. You believe in accountability, in responsibility, in will, but there is no freedom in your decisions. Only the illusion of it, dot. Start with the simplest, truth. Your brain makes decisions before you are aware of them, dot. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet discovered that electrical activity in the brain, the readiness, potential precedes conscious decisions by several hundred milliseconds. You think you chose to move your finger, but the signal to do so began before your awareness of the urge. You were already committed before you decided. Modern brain scans have pushed this further. In some studies, scientists can predict your decisions up to 10 seconds before you make them, just by watching your brain's activity. Long before you feel the flicker of a choice, it has been made, dot. So who chose? You say, but I can change my mind. Can you? What triggered the change? A thought? A feeling? A memory? All of which emerged from neural networks shaped by biology and experience. You didn't build those. They built you. You are not the author of your mind. You are its echo. Every preference you hold, coffee or tea, silence or music, rage or restraint, is a product of genes, culture, trauma, chemistry. You did not choose your childhood. You did not choose your neurons. You did not choose the limits of your attention or the shape of your desires, but they choose for you every second. Even your most spontaneous actions are conditioned. You think you improvise, but improvisation is just pattern recognition at high speed. You choose from available options. Options filtered by what you've known, what you've felt, what you've feared, dot, and then you justify it after the fact. You are a story your brain tells itself to feel like it's in control. This is called confabulation, the invention of reasons to explain actions already taken. Split-brain patients, whose hemispheres cannot communicate, will perform an action prompted by one side of the brain and then invent a completely false reason for it, believing it fully. They believe the lie because it feels real, dot. So do you. Free will requires agency, but agency requires origin. And there is no origin inside you that isn't already determined by something else. Determinism isn't an idea. It's physics. Every atom in your body obeys natural laws, cause and effect, momentum, force. Electrons don't choose to orbit. Neurons don't choose to fire. They respond to prior states, to physical laws. You are made of these reactions, dot. And if your components are not free, how can the whole be? You may want to believe in compatibilism, the philosophical escape hatch that says free will and determinism can coexist. That as long as you're not coerced, you're free. But this is semantic gymnastics. It changes the meaning of free will into something softer, something palatable, dot. It hides the horror. The truth is, you are a system. Inputs, processing, output, like a weather pattern, like a computer, like a chain reaction of falling dominoes. The feeling of choosing is just that, a feeling. And feelings are not facts. You say, I could have chosen differently. But could you? Run the universe again, atom by atom, exactly as it was. Would you choose anything else? Or would every decision fall the same way, in the same sequence, toward the same end? And if the answer is yes, then could is a lie, dot. So what is punishment? If there is no choice, what is guilt? What is pride? What is you? You believe in consequences, in judgment, in success earned and mistakes owned. But if no one chooses, then no one deserves. You don't deserve your victories, nor your failures. They were handed to you by molecules. So tonight, as you lie in bed, reflecting on the choices you made today, the call you avoided, the person you kissed, the thing you didn't say, ask yourself, if your life has already been written line by line, neuron by neuron, who exactly do you think is holding the pen? The observer that collapses everything you think you're watching the world. Seeing it unfold, measuring it, interpreting it. You believe there's a world out there and a you in here observing. But what if observation doesn't reveal reality? What if it creates it? At the heart of quantum mechanics lies a riddle that has shattered every classical assumption about the universe. The observer effect. In the infamous double-slit experiment, particles such as electrons or photons are fired toward a barrier with two slits. If unobserved, they act like waves, creating an interference pattern suggesting the particle went through both slits at once. But the moment a detector is placed to observe which slit it passes through, the interference pattern disappears. Now the particle behaves like a particle. Your observation collapses. The wave function. It forces the universe to choose. Before the measurement, the particle exists in a superposition, both here and there, neither here nor there. Only when you observe does it pick a state. Until then, it exists in probability, not position. In uncertainty, not fact. So what does this mean? That reality does not exist independently of observation. The act of measurement creates outcome. And this isn't philosophical fluff. It's tested. It's replicated. It's the foundation of modern quantum theory. Even delayed choice experiments show that decisions made after a photon has passed through slits can still retroactively determine its behavior. It's as if the particle knew it was going to be measured. And it waited for you to look. Isn't just spooky. It's impossible under classical logic. But the math works. The experiments hold. And the implications are terrifying. You believe in a stable world, one that exists whether or not you're there to witness it. But quantum mechanics doesn't care about your comfort. It suggests a universe where nothing is real until it is perceived. But then, what is perception? Is it eyes? Consciousness? Measurement? Does it require you? Or is any interaction enough? Some interpretations, like Copenhagen, say reality only takes shape when observed. Others, like many worlds, say the wave function never collapses. Instead, every possible outcome happens in parallel universes. But you'll only ever experience one, and that's the one you observed. You, the observer, the catalyst, the collapse. So what role are you playing in this endless theater? Not the audience, not even the actor. You're the screen upon which the movie is projected. And the moment you blink, the scene changes. Possibility becomes fact. Wave becomes particle. Chaos becomes choice. And you're doing it every second. Not just with photons, but with your life. You observe the world, and in doing so, you finalize it. You declare, this is real. But what if, by looking, you limit it? What if your observation kills the other versions? The job you didn't take, the love you didn't confess, the stranger you didn't become, they all existed, briefly, until you looked away. So what is the world, really? A collapsing waveform, a shimmering field of potentials, a question waiting for your attention. And if everything exists in probability until you observe it, what does that say about your own reality? The one you think you've already chosen? The universe that shouldn't exist. You are here, alive, awake, reading, breathing, but you shouldn't be. Not because of chance, not because of biology, but because According to everything we know, this universe should not exist at all. Let's begin with the beginning, the Big Bang, the supposed moment when time, space, and matter erupted into being from what? A singularity? A quantum fluctuation? A metaphysical accident? The truth is, we don't know what caused it. We don't know why anything exists instead of nothing. And more disturbingly, the math suggests it shouldn't. Here's why. When the universe began, it should have created equal amounts of matter and antimatter pairs of particles, identical in mass, but opposite in charge. But when matter and antimatter meet, they annihilate each other, leaving only energy. Perfect symmetry means total obliteration. Yet, here you are made of matter, not energy, not annihilation. Somehow, for reasons still unknown, there was a slight imbalance. For every billion pairs of matter and antimatter particles, there was one extra matter particle. That 1 in a billion survivor is what built you. Your blood, your bones, your stars. Why? We have no answer. We don't know what broke the symmetry. The standard model of particle physics has no clear explanation. Experiments at CERN and Fermilab haven't solved it. Your very existence is an asymmetrical error. Now add this. The universe is too flat. If the curvature of space had been just slightly more positive or negative at the Big Bang, the universe would have either collapsed back in on itself or expanded too fast for galaxies to form. But the measurements say it's perfectly balanced to within 0.00000000000000000. That's not just unlikely. It's absurd. Physicist Roger Penrose estimated the odds of such fine-tuning at 1 in 10, a number so large it dwarfs the number of atoms in the universe. If you wrote it out, it would be a 1 followed by more zeros than can fit in your lifetime. And yet, here you are. Then there's the cosmological constant, the energy density of empty space, responsible for the universe's accelerated expansion. Theoretical calculations predict its value should be 10 times larger than it is. That's not a typo. It's the worst prediction in the history of physics. If it were even slightly higher, the universe would have torn apart before stars or life could form. But it's not. It's tuned to the only value that allows structure, complexity, and you. How? We don't know. One answer. The multiverse. Infinite universes, each with different physical constants. Most are sterile, empty, or chaotic. Ours happens to be just right, because we're here to witness it. The anthropic principle. But that's not a solution. It's a surrender. It says, this is the way it is, because it had to be for you to ask the question. And that answer should horrify you, because it means the universe is not made for you. You are simply in the one place where life is possible, surrounded by infinite voids of lifeless failure. Now consider entropy. According to the second law of thermodynamics, the universe tends toward disorder. High entropy, chaos. But the universe began in a state of extremely low entropy maximum order. That order was necessary for time, evolution, thought. But why would the universe start ordered? No model explains it. Not inflation. Not quantum gravity. It's like waking up to find a deck of cards perfectly arranged from ace to king in all 4 suits. And assuming it happened naturally, you call it the universe. But what is it really? An anomaly. A cosmic fluke. A near impossible set of numbers balanced on a razor's edge. And every second that it continues to exist is a second borrowed from UNLIKELIHOOD. That the world is stable, predictable, a system. But it's not. It's a cosmic accident, teetering on statistical impossibility. And when you look up at the stars, and feel that strange pull, that quiet awe. It's not wonder you're feeling. It's terror. Because somewhere, deep down, your body knows none of this was ever supposed to happen. The brain that deceives itself, you believe in your mind that it is reliable, rational, self-aware. You trust your thoughts like a compass, assuming they point somewhere real, that your memories, your perceptions, your decisions are mostly accurate, flawed, perhaps, but fundamentally yours. But the mind lies, not occasionally, not by mistake, continuously, systematically, without remorse. Let's start with perception. You think your senses deliver reality, that what you see, hear, and feel corresponds to what exists. But the brain is not a window. It is a hallucination. Machine.vision. You don't see the world. You see photons bouncing off objects, filtered through corneas, distorted by lenses, translated into electrochemical signals. Your brain stitches them into a 3D model, filling in gaps, removing noise, coloring shadows. Everything you see is reconstructed, not captured. The blind spot in your retina is evidence. There's a hole in your visual field, no receptors. But do you see darkness? No. Your brain fills it in, fabricating visual information, seamlessly, silently, and you never notice. Now apply that process to everything. Your memory isn't a recording. It's reassembled every time you recall it, altered by mood, suggestion, and time, your judgments, warped by confirmation bias, anchoring, availability heuristics. You make decisions and then rationalize them after the fact. You think you're in control, but your reasoning is mostly post hoc. The interpreter module, located in the left hemisphere, does this constantly. It invents explanations to make random or unconscious decisions seem deliberate. The brain doesn't care about truth. It cares about coherence. Look deeper. In the rubber hand illusion. A person sees a rubber hand stroked in sync with their hidden real hand, and soon feels that the rubber hand is their own. Their sense of body of self can be hijacked with a trick of timing. So what does that say about your self-awareness? You can be tricked into misplacing your own body. Even split-brain patients whose hemispheres are surgically separated can have one hand unbutton a shirt while the other rebuttons it. One hemisphere believes in God, the other is an atheist. So which one is you? They both are. Or neither. The unity you feel is an illusion. You aren't a singular self. You are a collection of modules, networks, impulses. A swarm pretending to be an individual. And the thing that convinces you otherwise, the voice in your head, is just the loudest narrator, not the most truthful one. And this deception is necessary, because if the brain showed you reality as it is, unfiltered, chaotic, indifferent, you would collapse. So it edits, simplifies, comforts. You are fed a digestible world. A movie with missing frames. And yet you still trust it. You trust your gut, even though intuition is shaped by bias, not insight. You trust your thoughts, even though studies show you don't know why you do most things. In one experiment, participants were shown identical images of women and asked to choose the more attractive. After making a choice, the images were subtly swapped, and people didn't notice. They defended the image they hadn't chosen, inventing reasons for a decision they never made. You are wrong about yourself, constantly, and you never realize it. The philosopher Thomas Metzinger said, "There is no such thing as a self. There is just a self-model created by the brain, and you are identified with the content of that model. A model, a mask, a simulation within a simulation. So tonight, when you lie awake, remembering, analyzing, regretting, hoping, know that the mind doing the remembering is edited, the thoughts are biased, the regrets are miscalculated, and the hopes are likely false. And yet it all feels so real. So ask yourself, If you cannot trust your own mind, then what exactly is left of you? That's real at all? The memory that was never yours. You believe your memories are sacred, your proof of existence, the archive of everything you've lived. You reach into them like a box of photos, pulling out childhood, love, trauma, truth. You say, I remember, and it feels final dot, but your memories are not truth. They are stories. And worse, they're not even yours dot. Memory is not a filing cabinet. It is a reconstruction, a simulation built in the present to represent the past. Every time you remember something, you're not retrieving the memory. You're rewriting it. Neuroscience shows that each recall destabilizes a memory. When you think of that childhood birthday, that breakup, that car crash, you modify it, ever so slightly. Your emotional state bleeds into it. Your current beliefs tint it. Your brain fills gaps with guesswork, fragments, even borrowed images. Then it restores that version dot. So what are you really remembering? Not the event, the last time you remembered it. This is called reconsolidation. It means that every memory you cherish, every defining moment of your life has been bent, twisted, eroded, colored in by 100 other moments you are remembering. A copy of a lie dot. It gets worse. You don't even remember everything. You remember what your brain deems important, not what happened. This is called memory filtering. Attention determines encoding. If you weren't paying attention, it likely never registered at all dot. Your entire life may be filled with important things you never noticed. Even your sense of continuous identity is built from selected memories, arranged in order like beads on a string, but the string doesn't exist. Your life narrative is retrospective. Fiction. Your brain is desperate for coherence, so it backfills chaos with cause. It invents plots, themes, arcs. You think you've always been this person, that your personality, your values, your tastes have endured. But studies show your autobiographical memory changes every year. You are not who you think you've always been. You're a patchwork of edits, and most of the editors are unconscious. Now, consider false memories, entire events implanted into the mind through suggestion. In experiments, people vividly recall events that never happened. Being lost in a mall as a child, shaking hands with Bugs Bunny at Disneyland, witnessing a crime they never saw. The confidence of these memories is identical to real ones. You can't tell the difference. Neither can your brain dot. So what do you do with that? If your memories can be altered, fabricated, deleted, if they change over time, if they aren't accurate reflections, but constructed beliefs, then what is the past? A hallucination you believe because it feels familiar, even collective memory. Memory of nations, religions, families is distorted. History is shaped by the loudest, not the truest, by trauma, by power, by repetition. You inherit these memories. You call them culture. You wear them like skin, but you didn't live them. You just carry them dot. So, what parts of you are based on memories implanted by others? What feelings do you claim as your own that were seeded by movies, teachers, stories, strangers? You say, this happened to me, but did it? And if it did, do you remember it? Or do you remember the version that let you survive? So tonight, when you lie there holding on to the fragments that define you, the face of a parent, the sound of your name whispered, the ache of being left, ask yourself, if all your memories are reconstructed, then who is the person doing the remembering? The self that watches itself die. You believe there's a core inside you, a center, a soul, something stable that persists as everything else changes. You call it yourself, a witness, a controller, the one behind the eyes. You can feel it, can't you? That silent awareness, that deep hum of being? But what if that feeling is the final illusion? What if the self is not what watches, but what is being watched? Start with the simplest question: where are you? Point to a dot. Is it in your thoughts? But your thoughts are fleeting. They rise and vanish like smoke. You don't control most of them. They appear without your permission, often against your will. So are you your thoughts, or the one who observes them? Then what about your body? Is that you? Your body changes constantly. Hair falls, cells die, skin sheds, bones dissolve and rebuild. The body you had 10 years ago is not the one you're in now. Not a single molecule is the same. So which one was you? Maybe you think you are the one who chooses, the one who decides, but you've already been told choices precede awareness. Your brain fires before you feel intention. The you that decides is simply narrating what has already been decided. So what is left? Just the witness, that quiet presence, the part that notices pain but is not pain, that feels fear but is not fear, that listens to the thoughts without becoming them. But even that isn't safe, because the default mode network, the part of your brain most associated with this internal narration, can be disrupted in meditation, in trauma, in psychedelic states, and when it shuts down, the self disappears. People report ego death, merging with everything, becoming nothing, losing the I, and still they are conscious. Awake. So if you can experience consciousness without a self, then the self is not consciousness. It is an object inside consciousness, and you are not the subject. You are just another process being observed. This is the insight behind ancient philosophies and cutting-edge neuroscience. From Buddhist non-self, anatta, to the findings of cognitive science, there is no singular, permanent, unified self. No homunculus in the brain steering the ship. There is only experience, unfolding, repeating, watching itself, and yet you feel it. So where does that leave you? Here's the final horror. You are watching something die. You are watching your idea of yourself unravel in real time. Not just aging, not just memory loss, but the erosion of identity, the loss of control, the decay of certainty, the flickering of meaning. And you can't stop it, because the one who could stop it never existed. The mind has mistaken the mirror for the face, the reflection for the source. And now, as everything breaks down, time, memory, identity, thought, you are still reaching for the thing that used to hold it all together. But the center is empty. There is no you. At the core, only the desperate memory of a self that once believed it could hold the universe still. So tonight, when the voice in your head calls your name, when it says, I am, when it begs for sleep or peace or escape, ask yourself, there is no one home inside the house of your mind. Who exactly is hearing the knock? The death that begins before you die. You think death is an event, a singular moment, a heartbeat that stops, a breath not taken. You imagine it as the final door, a thing that happens once, the sharp line between being and not being. Death doesn't happen in an instant. It begins long before you're gone. And in many ways, it has already begun. Your body starts dying the moment you're born. Cells divide, age, fail. Telomeres, the protective caps on your chromosomes, shorten with each replication. Eventually, they become too short, and the cell can no longer divide. This is called replicative senescence. Your body has a built-in expiration code. Every time you heal, you get closer to the point when you can't. You think you're alive, but your cells are quitting quietly, one by one. You say death is the end of consciousness. But what if consciousness doesn't vanish all at once? In studies of near-death experiences, brain activity sometimes spikes after the heart stops bursts of organized, synchronized waves, possibly hallucinations. possibly remnants of perception. Moments where the brain fights for clarity, even as blood ceases to flow. You may be conscious after your body gives, but unable to move, unable to scream. And even when you're unconscious, something remains. Hearing is the last sense to fade. Hospice workers have long known the dying can still hear when they can no longer speak. Loved ones whisper goodbyes into ears that seem unresponsive, but something is listening. Then there's the body. After you die, your muscles stiffen rigor mortis, but then loosen again. Cells begin autolysis, digesting themselves. Bacteria bloom, gases swell, skin slips. But the process doesn't start at zero. It begins in life. Micro-decay, slow rot in joints, in teeth, in the gut biome shifting. You are a slow-motion corpse. Pretending to be stable. Now look at your mind. Cognitive decline can begin in your 20s. Memory loss, decision fatigue, emotional volatility. You compensate, adjust, adapt, but you are already losing pieces. The death of thought, the erosion of personality. You are dying in fragments. And most terrifying, you won't notice it happening. Ask the Alzheimer's patient who forgets their child's name. Ask the man who doesn't remember he asked the same question 10 times. They are not gone, but parts of them have already died. Death is not binary. It is a process, not just of the body, of the self, of the continuity you cling to. You are not one life. You are a series of brief flashes, connected by memory, narrated by habit, dissolving with each day. And when the final moment comes, if there even is one, it won't feel like a crossing. It will feel like a pause. And then, nothing. Not blackness. Not silence. Just non-experience. You say, but I can't imagine that. Of course you can't. You're alive. You can't simulate non-being. You can only fail to imagine. Like trying to picture a color you've never seen. Like trying to think without a thinker. So you invent stories, afterlives, spirits, energy, because the idea of ending without echo is unbearable. But you don't remember before you were born. You were gone once already, and no part of you cried out. So tonight, as your mind drifts towards sleep, and you wonder what it will feel like when the light dims permanently, remember, you don't wait for death. You carry it with you. Every moment, every breath. So the real question is, how much of you has already gone?